I can say, I just love putting out extra chairs. We have a great crowd tonight. I thank everyone for coming. You make a difference by getting involved, and that's what we're doing tonight. I'd like to, again, acknowledge some of our political and community activists here. While everyone was looking this way at my New York Mets t-shirt, our councilman from the 32nd Council District, Ulrich, walked in. Eric, please come up, say a few words.
Good evening, everyone. Everybody braved the rainy weather to be here tonight. I thank you all for coming. He's ready to hit me with the umbrella, so I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Some interesting things going on. I'm sure that you've been watching the news or reading the newspaper and seeing some of the things going on at City Hall. On Friday, we're going to approve the city budget, $59.4 billion. Expense budget, and that obviously goes to pay for all the things that we rely on a day-to-day basis, the police, the fire, the sanitation, etc. There are three main points that I think are worthy of bringing up, where the City Council was able to restore some of the cuts that we thought would adversely affect us, not only in my district, but specifically right here in Woodhaven. The first thing that the city was able to do through the council was we were able to save the 16 firehouses that were supposed to be closed throughout the 5 boroughs. I think that was some really good news. I'm not going to take all the credit for that, but all 51 of the city council members recognizing the need for advanced fire safety and also for response time. We know all too often the tragic situations that occur when an apartment goes ablaze or when a house burns down and it takes too long for an ambulance and for the firefighters to arrive on scene, and ultimately, unfortunately, all too often there are young victims involved. And we knew that when we make cuts to the budget, we may be saving pennies today, but we're jeopardizing lives tomorrow. And so we were able to restore the funding for the firehouses, and we were able to keep them open across the 5 boroughs. There were 2 in Staten Island, there were a number here in Queens, Brooklyn, the Bronx, and one in Manhattan. So we made sure that that was a priority. The second thing that we made sure was a priority was the library funding. Particularly here in Queens, a lot of people come to rely on the Queens library system. Not only is it a place for children to go after school and do homework, but during those hot summer days, when the senior centers are closed, unfortunately, the senior citizens can go to the libraries, they can cool off, they can relax with their peers, they can read a good book, they can rent DVDs. The libraries today are totally interactive. They're not like they were years ago. They're not these old dusty shelves. They have magazine subscriptions, they have DVDs, they have computer, they have high-speed internet access. A lot of people can't afford broadband. A lot of people can't afford a cable modem at home. They can't afford the triple play package that you see on TV all the time. But they can go to the library and they can make sure that they can pay their bills, they can get information, they can do research, and they've come to rely on that. So as a result of the city council budget and the money that we were able to restore, the libraries will be open for 6 days. So I think that's great news. The last thing that I think is really newsworthy, I know that this was very close to the speaker's heart, was the funding for the Administration for Child Services, the ACS funding. And if we all remember the tragic Nix Marie Brown case a few years ago, when that 7-year-old girl was brutally abused, assaulted, and eventually murdered at the hands of her mother's lover, we vowed as a city, elected officials, the mayor, everybody went on the news and they said, we are never going to let this happen again. And here we are, just a few years later, the city's in the red, and we were going to put the chopping block, and fire will lay off those 100 caseworkers that were so vital to making sure that they were able to stay on top of their cases and preventing another Nix Marie Brown situation from ever happening again. And we were able to maintain and restore the funding for the ACS workers, and that was very, very important for us to do. Of course, that's all the good news. What's the bad news? Where are we going to get the money to pay for all these things, right? There are a number of things that the council, now people are getting excited, right? Probably the most controversial part of the budget package was the sales tax increase. The city reinstated sales tax on clothing and shoes on purchases above $110. Now, I voted against it. There were 10 other council members who voted against the city's reinstatement of the sales tax on clothing and shoes. you know, not only because people are hurting, but because I happen to feel philosophically, at least, that clothing is a necessity. It's like food, right? You can't go without food, you can't go without clothing, you can't go around without shoes, and you can't go around without shelter, right? And so I said that it's not right to tax people when they're buying necessities. If they want to buy tobacco, if they want to buy alcohol, if we want to tax them for all the other, you know, sin taxes or luxury items that they want to have in their life for their personal use, that's fine. But when people are out buying clothes, if they're shopping on Jamaica Avenue, and parents need to go out and buy clothing for their kids when they go back to school, or we need to go out and buy a new wardrobe, or whatever the case may be, why should we have to bear the brunt of the economic crisis? So we voted against it. Unfortunately, it passed. So the sales tax is going to go up. The other problem that we have is that, in good fashion for the city of New York, the Department of Finance is always 2 years behind on the assessments. So how many people here own their own home? Right? I'd say a good number of people own their own home, right? So now that the market has pretty much gone almost into the tank, right, because our homes are not worth what they were 5 years ago, they're 2 years behind in assessing the value of your home. And so even though the market value for your house is going to go down, your property taxes is likely either to stay the same or in some instances, depending on your zip code or where you're from, actually increase. And the city is hoping to take in that revenue, which is really based on a fallacy, in hopes that in 2 years from now, when we get caught up with the books, that the city will be in better shape and they'll settle the deal later. So in other words, they're robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's just another gimmick, I think, in order to close the budget gap. I don't agree with it, but unfortunately, we need vital city services, we need cops, we need firemen, we need the garbage to be picked up on time. We have to pass a budget, and so we're voting on it on Friday. There are some great things, there are some not so great things. It's far from perfect, but at the end of the day, I think that our community, especially Woodhaven, is a lot better off for the budget package that we are passing, not only for the caseworkers, but especially for the firehouses and also for some of the other local initiatives that we've been able to fund. So